when black people wake up and become intellectually independent enough to think for themselves, as other humans are intellectually independent enough to think for themselves, then the black man will think like a black man, and he will feel for other black people. And this new thinking and feeling will cause black people to stick together.
Truth seekers, please understand, Mental Dialogue is much more than just a talk show. Each and every Saturday, we communicate with you for two reasons: to dialogue and connect. On the dialogue side, we cater to you intellectual outcasts who feel you have no place for honest discourse on race, sex, culture, and African-American business. On the connect side, we've created a community where you can connect with experts specifically in finance, whether personal or business, and mental health, whether it's trauma or to optimize performance, along with all the other skill sets from other MD community members. Our mission was to create a virtual nationwide neighborhood where African Americans learn to trade ideas, goods, and services through social media, meetup, and this podcast. To become a neighbor of the Mental Dialogue Community Club, please visit us at mentaldialogue.com. We are better with you than we are without you. We can be neighbors even though we don't live next to each other. Hashtag raise the culture.
What's up, everybody? It's your mental activist, Montoya Smith, back with another edition of the new version of the Mental Dialogue Talk Show. We call ourselves the Mental Dialogue Perspective, episode 3 via YouTube. We are live on video. I have an extra special Queen of Intellect joining me. Every time she used to join me on Blog Talk, we do numbers and we go in depth. So I got the Queen with me, Fila McMillan-Antwine. Thank you, Queen, for being with me, if you will. And officially become a Queen of Intellect member. So you're going to see her pretty regular on the Mental Dialogue Perspective when we pop up on our Saturday times for those who rock with us for the 8 years on Blog Talk that we rock. But if you will, Fila, let them know who you are, what your background is, as we like to say on this show. And we're going to get this thing started. And I'll introduce kind of the new format for the Mental Dialogue Perspective. But tell them who you are first.
Absolutely. So first of all, welcome, Montoya, to this new platform and space that you're creating. I'm super proud of you for the transition, and I'm excited to be here because I always enjoy our dialogues and the environment that you create. I'm Fila McMillan-Antwine, the Queen of Hearts, or the Queen of Coaching, as you can call me. I'm a life and relationship coach who specifically focuses on helping Black women and women of color create healthy relationships, not just in intimate spaces, but in every area of our lives, because relationships are the currency of life. And I want us all to have luxury love and luxurious relationships.
Hey, I love it. And so if you're familiar with our Blog Talk, if you ever followed us there, we would have a topic, if you will, right? We would have a topic and we would deep dive for 2 hours, mental dialogue, go depth. We're still going to go deep, but the idea now is we're going to react to others' content. And so that's why it's called the Mental Dialogue Perspective. So we're going to share other people's content, and then we're going to go deep with my Queen of Intellect sisters who would follow showcasing for this episode. So with that said, we're going to go into a cut, and we just kind of going to go all over the place when it comes to race, sex, and marriage today, as we have, in my opinion, one of the best relationship coaches in the entire country. I follow only the best, only the real ones. And so y'all about to see how this queen's mind works. But let's play this cut right here and get us started.
All this bullshit up in my house, I'm gonna translate for you. She's mad because every 6 months you want to roll up in here and tell people what to do. Well, this is a 24/7 job. Do you understand me? I don't care what you think about her. This woman, the mother of your child, she is a damn good mother. Whether she's sick, when she's tired, when she just plain old don't feel like it. She don't have anybody to pass the baton to. Nobody here to pass it to. She's the first one up in the morning and the last one to go down at night. She's the mother, the father, the doctor, the nurse, the chauffeur, the therapist. And if she decides to leave her son behind and go chase after her dream, what would Dante be, huh? So you may not like her, but you damn sure gonna respect her, and you are gonna thank her, because without her, you couldn't do what what you doing? And you, Destiny, having that baby didn't keep him. Yelling and screaming and embarrassing yourself in front of people, that's not gonna bring him back. Baby, he gone. He don't want you no more. You got to let him go. You need to think about how you all are gonna raise Deontay right now, together with what you got right now. This is it. Figure it out. Hell, use the girlfriend solutions. Those were not bad ideas. Yes, me and Bill, we'll take him. And don't be mad because he can't take him. He's not here, but we are. And that is our deal. Baby, I know you're mad. Come on. And although you got every right to be mad, you are aiming it at the wrong. You're aiming it at the wrong people.
That's it. Okay, that's enough.
Powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a synopsis of current times. For anyone looking to be in a relationship, either in their own childhood or their own quest at being in a relationship, a lot of us have had either all of that perspective happen in our lives, whether we're the child, whether we're the man, whether we're the female, whether we're the grandmother. There's a lot of context in that very powerful cut from Love Is. Highlight that Sister Loretta Devine killed that part. But just laying out that dynamic. And so the reason I started here, Fila, and want to get your thoughts. The reason I started here is because as a relationship coach in current times, people are coming to you with often those type of traumatic upbringings in some form of what you just saw. Not everyone. God bless those who didn't go through that, right? But that is an unfortunate, often a reality, and people are having to try to figure it out, and they don't always get to, as she was suggesting, to get good at the co-parenting if there's a child involved. Because here's the unique thing for us as humans right now. We're getting married much later than previous generations of humans, much later. So the chances or the opportunity to be in that situation, even almost by default, can be higher and likely. Again, not every situation, but specifically in our community, we know with the family breakup, that looks pretty normal. So I just kind of want to lay that context and to hear your perspective on what you saw and about, receiving people who've had that experience, because that's another layer to overcome that previous generations didn't have to concern themselves with as much, I would say. But go ahead.
First of all, Loretta is divine. She's such a phenomenal actress, and she brings such depth and rawness and realness to the screen every time. That scene, every time I see it, I recognize something different, or I feel something different, or have another thought, because it's so nuanced and it's so layered, and it speaks to so many things about relationships in general, but also specifically about relationships and the dynamic within our communities, right? So the pressure and the strain and the stress that's on the Black man that causes him to kind of go de facto and leave his responsibilities behind, but in doing so, putting more pressure, stress, and strain on the Black mothers and the Black women who are there. It also speaks so much to the power of the community and the tribe and the collective. We're not supposed to be doing it on our own, right? The whole trope of the independent woman and the single Black woman and single Black mothers raising Black boys, all of that is abnormal and unhealthy. And these are things that have been normalized in our communities for so long that we don't even see the dichotomy, and we don't see the impact as negative anymore because we see it so often. And for my clients who come in, many of them are successful women, high earning women, right? High value, high achievers, have the money, have the things, but they're still bringing baggage from those traumatic experiences between mom and dad, between themselves and intimate partners. And there's no way that you can progress in a relationship if you don't resolve that residue, even if it wasn't yours, because we carry so much trauma generationally and intergenerationally and physiologically. And so it really speaks to the fact that we all have to come together, mama, daddy, baby mama, new girlfriend, all the things, because the most important person in this landscape are the children. We're passing the torch to them. We're teaching them how to live, how to love, how to lead. And so our focus as adults has to be on making sure that their foundation is as solid as possible and getting out of our individualism and our selfishness to make sure that these children, that child, has everything that it needs so that it can undo all of the bullshit that we've done.
No, absolutely. And that's part of the foundation that's missing with how we've, if you will, I would say we've dirtied the word marriage in current times, right? And so we kind of, as I always say, we end up throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? And so we've lost sight of the focus is children. Like that's the responsibility to eventually leave a legacy. So it's like, you know, vetting for not only do I like her, not only is she beautiful, but more importantly, how will she raise my children? Because when you had that understanding, that ended up being the focus. And then maybe historically, there was a level of financial security that was needed historically that made, you know, that's kind of with the way things are now, not always the issue. But both, but the financial security and how she will raise my child, or vice versa, how will he raise my child, and what financial security can he bring me, was kind of necessity factors that also helped with not getting divorced, right? Like those things, that necessity, that's the part that still is foundational, even though we may think that it's not as much of a necessity. We have that part wrong. That foundation is still there. That's why you said all of everybody coming together, in a sense, for those children becomes bigger than yourself once you do that. And that selfishness that you mentioned is the problem we're having. We're being individualistic. We're being selfish within these relationships. And nobody's taught us, once you're together, it's about the legacy you may bring, whether you have children or not. But still, that foundation is something that's missing today. But I'm gonna go ahead. Please respond to that.
I just wanted to kind of build on what you said really quickly, because the things that you talked about, right? Like attractiveness and then financial security, these things are demonized in a way. Men call women gold diggers and that kind of thing. And women currently, which is crazy to me, there are so many women who are like, I don't want men to look at me. I don't want them to find me attractive, right? And so many women, there's this mass movement of women who are very proud to say, I don't want children and I don't want to have children. If that's a personal choice and you're comfortable with that, that's fine. But so much of it comes from overcompensating, right? And wanting the world to know that I'm better or stronger because of this. But even like you said, on the foundational level, when it comes to psychology, the women that men tend to find attractive, who have fuller breasts and fuller asses and fuller hips, is simply about her body being able to carry a child and you seeing her as fertile. And women being attracted to men who we see have financial resources and fancy cars, it only translates into stability. So we really have to break all of this down, like you said, and get back to the foundational and the fundamentals so we can understand ourselves.
Well, absolutely. What you just pointed out is what goes amiss as we move into the, and this is not a shot at, but the alphabet type stuff and the transgender stuff. Like, like I said, not a shot at it, but we're losing sight of the difference you just talked about that is so natural when it comes to mating for children. Again, like you said, if that's not your cup of tea, we're not talking about that. But we're actually losing sight of how that difference actually makes what we are attracted to and what we would go for very different. We're trying to make those things the same, and they naturally and psychologically can never be. And we're letting that part go while we're trying to accommodate people, whatever they want to apply us. Again, no problem. Got love for you. But let's not lose sight of, at the end of the day, the majority of humans are still going to mate, in a sense, I'll say the natural way, because that's how we procreate, period. That's still going to happen. Absolutely. It's going to be the majority of what humans do, no matter what comes in the future, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Let's play this cut right here.
You want me to provide safety for you, but you cannot reciprocate it for me. I deserve to feel safe too. A number of black men internally, their internal world is not safe. And yet you want me to provide you with safety that I don't even know for myself. When I say to you that you've harmed me, you give me this rigmarole, that's not safe. When I tell you I'm tired, you get so wrapped up in your responses that you don't even give me the space to be fucking tired. That's not safe. I say to you that I don't feel connected to you. I say to you that you are not meeting my emotional needs. I say to you that I do not feel the way that you talk to me is uplifting, and you continue to do it. That's not safe. But yet you want me to continue to go out in this world and come back and do all of this stuff. You don't want me. You want your idea of me. And if I don't fit that idea, you begin rejecting me. That's not safe.
Thank you.
That comes from the Black Wealth Crew podcast. Got that off of IG. Very powerful. I posted it on my page a few weeks ago and just said, and I personally said, I'm not sure how I feel about this. And I'm saying that having experienced exactly what he's talking about. I personally have experienced that. And
so when you say you're not sure how you feel about it, do you mean you're not sure what feelings come up for you, or you're not sure what your opinion of it is?
The second, the latter, to a degree. Okay. That's what I posted when I posted it, right?
Okay.
In preparing for the day, I still don't know if I formulated it per se. I definitely want to get more of your thoughts on what you're seeing. The thing that I'll highlight, again, I think this is a potential lesson for navigating modern times. But what I will say, specifically in hearing him highlight how he's not safe, that's another aspect in the equality equation that leads to, I will say, our ladies, our sisters talking to us any kind of way. And in a sense, it comes from being in, if you will, the job market on the same level and having to compete for jobs, which makes sense, and being competitive and having to compete for positions, which is fine. But you get used to dialoguing with your opposite in a way that historically didn't exist. And now it gets normalized. And because we don't consider some of those differences you and I were just talking about, if we're going to get deeper on a psychological level, sometimes you can bring that home, and it's a lack of understanding of how we're left unsafe when it's the how you speak versus what you're saying. It ends up becoming an issue. For example, even if I make a mistake, there's a how you speak to me that I'll hear it and want to respond. You're my lady. I want to keep you safe. I want to make it right. It's my nature. You know, we like to please you. There's a how you can say, I made the mistake, but there's a how you speak to me that I'll never hear it because of how. So that's what comes up for me when I hear that cut. Go ahead, Queen.
You know, a lot of my work is founded on the principles of self-actualization and self-care and self-identity. And so there's a part of this conversation where we all have to take ownership of our own feelings of safety, right? Of our own feelings of happiness and security to a certain extent. So creating that for ourselves and going back to what we talked about a little earlier, those traumas and those problems and those issues, those personal things, you have to resolve those things for yourself. Because when you get into a relationship, those things are only going to be mirrored and be exacerbated, right? So that's the first part of the conversation, just making sure you're acknowledging your own experiences, resolving any residue and things like that. But what I heard him saying was, you know, I'm hurting and I'm not able to nurse my own wounds. And while I'm in this state of hurt, you're not seeing me, you're not hearing me, you're not nurturing me, you're not making space for me, so I don't feel safe in this environment. And I think a lot of us operate like that when we're talking about us, Black folks, brown folks, because we have not historically had the luxury of tuning into our feelings and talking about how we feel. We've been in survival for so long. And even those of us who are intellectual and evolved and all those things, we still kind of get caught up in that trap. I remember a number of years ago, my husband, who is like healthy masculine and takes care of his family and not very emotional and all those things, said to me, you know, you make me feel like I can't be human. And that was something that I heard. It was like banging in my head.
Yeah, I can
I
imagine.
was like, oh shit, like I'm putting so much pressure. I have so much expectation, all of these things. So the fact that he was able to tell me was an indication that he did feel safe, right? In one respect.
Absolutely. Yep,
He was
absolutely.
able to share
Some
that.
men never, they can never say it. They can never let that out.
Exactly.
So yeah, absolutely. Credit to you in that sense. Absolutely.
Right. So in
Absolutely.
that way, but then also it made me so hyper aware of how we as women are always looking to men to save us, to rescue us, to create these things for us. And again, it's so fundamental that we do those things on our own. And as a mother to a son, I'm learning that in a new way now. So much of those feelings of unsafety are not about the intimate partnerships that men are in, but it's about the relationship dynamics they have with their mother. Who were the women who raised them? What are those voices that are still playing in their heads? So again, it is this layering of emotional dynamics when it comes to women and relationships, and all goes back to that foundation that we talked about, right? Like we have so much work to do.
Right. Like it's pretty common, especially back in the day, and men will still say this again. I don't think I see this dynamic as much, maybe because I'm older, and maybe it still happens. But men always are prone to telling their wives or their significant other that they have children with, because more men are at homes than people realize in our community.
Absolutely.
It's about 52%. It actually ticked up to over 50% just in the last year or two. So yeah, still 3% having out of wedlock, but people just not marrying as much now. The men are there more than people realize. But anyway, I say that just to highlight that men, we are prone to say to stop yelling at that boy, because we're concerned about our own experience, knowing what it does to that young man.
Yeah.
Like you said, because that's typically where it starts, right? The mother. Yep. And I got my brother Cecile on. I'm gonna go ahead and jump him on this thing, because I did offer to let people jump on. So Cecile, you coming in this thing in the middle of it, but I just wanted to go ahead and get you on, because I know you said you only had a few minutes. But yeah, that's what my take out of it. As I listened to you break down that he felt like he wasn't safe, and the way I heard you say it, Fila, was like in a lot of areas. I realized when your perspective made me realize I'm tuning in on what my concern is. Like I realized, like, damn, I'm like, when I first heard you say, well, listen, he didn't feel safe in all these ways. And I'm like, no, he's only talking about how she's talking to him. And I'm realizing as you're speaking, that's my area. Right. You heard much more. I tuned into what does that make sense? Like the psychology.
Of course.
My area, which we often do, right? You only kind of see it through your lens. So it was kind of dope to hear you evolve and say, hey, that can happen in a lot of areas. And I love your example. All right. So see, I don't know if you caught the last clip. We want to say something about it, but I got another clip if you want to just start with a new clip. But I just definitely, if you had something to say, I want to let you jump in, brother. Sincere, can you hear me?
Yeah, my brother, let's jump on this new clip, man. Peace.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, cool. Let's do it.
Yeah, man. Let's see.
All right, cool. Definitely.
Listen, Queen, I have some bad news for you, but it's bad news that's going to empower you in a good way. The thing is, anytime you are moving from fear in your search for love, love is going to elude you. You're not going to find love in the places and spaces that you end up. You are only going to find more fear, and more fear is going to be created. So it's important for you to understand that if you are afraid of men, if you are afraid of being hurt, if you are afraid of being cheated on, if you are afraid in any way in your search for love, you are not ready for love itself. Love needs a clear, pure canvas to work with, to work on, and to create its picture from, right? Many years ago, I worked with a client who identified as lesbian. And as we worked together and she tried to figure out why she could never be in a relationship with a woman for long enough to really settle in, and why she would always feel anxious and antsy around like the 6-month mark. And what we realized was that her desire to be in relationships with women were because she feared relationships with men.
She had a traumatic experience as a child. She saw her mom be abused. She saw the women in her life and in her family be mistreated by the men that they chose. And so somewhere in that trauma, her childhood mind decided that it would be safer to be in relationships with women because being in relationships with men would lead to violence and lead to pain and lead to danger. But she was never satisfied in her relationships with any of the women that she was with, no matter how great they were to her, no matter how giving they were to her. And she had to take a step back, to backtrack, to really resolve the fear and the anguish that she felt around being in relationships with men before she would be able to move forward in a relationship with a man or relationship.
So
I know her.
You know, I love making you react to your own clips, if you will. The clip obviously said afraid of men. The reality is the clip easily could have said afraid of women, because it reminded me of a show we did on the Blog Talk version of Mental Dialogue years ago, saying how I spent 10 years chasing love. So it was like the most vulnerable I was ever on the show, if you will, because I was highlighting my own journey of realizing after the fact that in my 20s and 30s, always being afraid to trust a woman, not because necessarily a woman had cheated on me, but just things that I had seen or done to my friends. I thought I was cheat proof just in the sense of how I handle it, right? Like just a lot of BS that I had learned as a young man, and you know, coming along and meeting the sinceres of this brother who's in a great relationship coach here in Atlanta as well. But meeting brothers like that, seeing how they move, that type of thing, it was like, wow, I actually was scared. And now know that I wouldn't have done anybody any justice had they grabbed me up during that time. I literally had a way for the women that I was just playing, I acted a certain way. But if I thought I found her, then that gentleman that's here right now, he showed up. But the problem was in fear. So I'm still that man without the fear now. That's the growth period. But I learned that a lot later. But I love that cut. And because you coach women, that's why you're having the conversation in the way you are. But I definitely wanted to highlight for anybody watching, you're not watching the show where we're like, yeah, tell them, Fila. Because
it's just positioning.
Yeah, we don't move on that. We don't move like that on this show.
Not at all.
Yeah, but your response, again, I want to kind of share some of my story. That's what it made me think of.
Well, I would love to hear Sincere's take on that and let him have the space and have the floor.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Sincere. Is he froze up on us?
Peace, Queen. How are you?
I'm very well. Nice to meet you.
So, no, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, it was like
awesome and amazing. And peace, King. All right, great. I love what I just heard from you. I love what I just heard from you, because I have to address a number of my clients in the same way. And what I have to let them know is that we have to choose faithful or fearful. Both can't reside in the same space at the same time concerning the same circumstance, right? So with that being the case, we often have to examine enough to get down to the root of the issue, right? So if we don't attack the root, whatever grows from the soil is going to continue to grow, right? So that's a part of my own story. So I speak on lived experience as well as my studies, being happily and healthily married. I had to deal with some dark spaces. I had to pull up the root that told me that I wasn't a good enough leader to lead my previous wife, that I wasn't yet mature enough to have a happy, healthy, productive relationship with my ex-fiance. Now, if we deal with these things, then we can deal with what's to come, right? So that's what I have to say to get us kicked off. What are y'all's thoughts?
So I love that we're on the same page and aligned from the different perspectives, because it is important for me in my coaching and my work with clients who are women. This is not about creating divisiveness between Black men and Black women. It's about having honest conversations that bring us together and holding women accountable, right? Because we can run from accountability a lot of the times. but doing it in a way that's empowering. And so much of the things that we choose and create in our lives come from this pattern of fear, especially when it comes to Black women. We are achieving more and building more and doing more because we're afraid of being disappointed. We don't want to have to rely on anyone, all the things that we've seen. So to your point, Sincere, it is exactly about getting to the root of everything before you can grow anything.
No, I love it. So I'm going to do a share screen here. I want to share this because I was going to play it on the screen, but it's kind of small. So just give me a second for everybody watching. I'm going to do a quick share. And it has some music, but I'm going to try to talk through the music and share some thoughts. We're going in a completely different direction, but it's very current, what I'm about to show here. So let me see. Share screen. All right, let's see. Instagram. Not that one. I think it's this one. Let me just share and see if I can get to it. All right. I know y'all see Fila right now. Do you see the one that says "Real" has been shared? Do you see that?
Not yet.
Okay. You still just see the one with your face?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right. This share didn't work the way I wanted, so I'm just going to play it on the screen. It's just small. All right,
Okay.
I'll give it a shot. All right, let me come back and just play the cut. I'm going to try to walk through it. Y'all, matter of fact, let me mute the music because it's kind of in the way. Let me mute the music real quick. Give me a second, y'all. All right, we'll mute it, and I'm just going to read what I want y'all to hear.
Okay.
So let me set it up real quick, too. So this is a young lady on IG, and she dresses up, like gets dressed up, wears these real cool, cute outfits type things, and she's highlighting some of the responses that she's getting. And so I'm going to share she highlights some of the negative ones on this particular clip. So I'm going to kind of read those. They're real kind of crude, just a heads up for anybody listening, but we keep it real and it makes the point. So
man, my heart's so big, man, I had to step back. Put time in my craft. I'm a full-time dad. Morning time decision, hard top all the rag. Sun dropped off, now I'm back to the lab. G350 sitting nice on the pavement. Espresso shot, why count this paper? New windbreaker, when archive Bottega. A tuck in Benicia with a view that's amazing. Hit the car wash, take a jog while they
dressed up like a school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And she's highlighting. So what she says on the cut, and I'll read it to you real quick. So what she highlights on this cut is, let me read this. Oh man, did I lose it? Okay, I'm just going to have to paraphrase it. So she highlights that when she does her IG page, 95% of the comments she gets are extremely positive. And so she felt that it was necessary to call out the 5% of men who are making these type of comments based on, and just giving an example of what she was wearing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought it was an opportunity because we're always talking about, especially in current times, when it comes to, in a sense, what women currently wear. That's always a huge topic on the internet and amongst people about how should a woman show up. And so again, she's highlighting that 5% of negative thoughts. And so I wanted to highlight the psychology of feeling like it was necessary to call out that 5% of men who are obviously, in my mind, out of their mind. I didn't see anything inappropriate in what that sister wore. But giving that group, highlighting them, actually, in my opinion, drives them to mess with her more. And this is not about her in particular. In my opinion, it's an opportunity to understand the concept of giving light to those in our community who will be negative. And in her situation, she's saying this is only 5% of people. I know the comments are abhorrent, but if you never give them light, meaning not to make the point to those on social media, but individually, we have to get better at recognizing all the positivity that is in our own lives and not focusing on those who are miserable people who will bring that to our lives. And I would highlight that when it comes to dating and relationships, it is a natural tendency to focus on the negative people and taking the time to call it out, giving it more energy and missing out on the opportunity to realize all the goodness that is around you and the fact that the majority of people are not those situations. Fila, any thoughts on me just kind of bringing that to the table?
Of course. So the question that we should always ask ourselves is what's the reason? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Could y'all hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
We're
cool.
good. Yes.
All right, cool.
So the question for me is always, what is the reason, right? Why am I doing this? Why am I highlighting this? How does this serve me? How does this help me? And let me backtrack and say, I don't believe everything I see on the internet at all, right? So whether or not these comments are really coming to her or not, we don't know, because people tell all the lies on the social media for engagement, for attention, all of that. And as creators, we know that. So that's first and foremost. Okay. Secondly, if it is true, what is the point of it? What is the point of highlighting these negative comments that men are making to you if you have an audience of women, right? Do you want to implant these type of negative thoughts into the minds of the women who follow you? Are you trying to validate a story that you have about men? What is the actual point? Because if 95% of the time you have good experiences, that should be what you're leaning towards, unless there's some internal issue with you. I'm a woman. I've been a woman my whole life. I'm from New York. I've been called a bitch. I done had bottles thrown at me for not speaking, for not responding. But that has to be like 0.1% of my experiences with men. So those are not the things that I focus on. In my real life, men are catering to me. They open the door for me. They buy breakfast for me. They treat me in a special way because that's how I show up. And that's the story that I'm following, not the one that validates my negative tropes about men and how they operate. So again, what is the point of this? That would be my question.
All right, fair enough. Sincere, any thoughts? Sincere, you're on mute.
Yeah, absolutely. And beautifully stated, my sister. Yeah. You're beautifully stated, right? So what I often give to my crowds, my client family, is this: as a holistic practitioner and relationship coach, my question to them is this: what energy would you like to feed? And where are you getting your nourishment? Right? So if you're feeding the negative energy, guess what shows up? Right? If you're feeding the positive energy, guess what shows up? Right? So we have to think of it in this way. What do I want to feed to create a certain level of abundance in my life? It really speaks to what you believe, what you know, and what you're willing to be. And that attention that you give is currency. Mm-hmm. It's currency. Just like my sister said, even if it's real, right? Social media is not a real world to me. I only put things out there to encourage my community. And anything else, like, I have yet to respond to any negativity because those people are not real to me. I create my world. Right? So the ones that I do, it's not to the public. It's one-on-one. Mm-hmm. And I let them know, my sister, my brother, if you would like me to invest in you, I'm willing to do so. Mm. I'm willing to get you into another space. I'm willing to help you. I love you just that much. Mm-hmm. Right. So I'll leave it there. I love the conversation. I always love how you drive dialogue, my brother, and my sister. Keep doing what you're doing. You're amazing and unbelievable.
Thank you. Likewise.
Nah, I appreciate you, brother. I know you want to get to your day, so no stress. I want to go even deeper with that before I play another cut, if you will, Fila. Mm-hmm. And it's the concept of, and I'm going back to how we dialogue to one another. I'm hoping this is a deep dive. I think it is, personally.
Okay.
So the concept of calling out. Let's see, we got a comment too. Let me make sure I'm looking at the comments. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, somebody repeated what he said. What energy do you want to feed? Like, dope. And so the call out concept. And again, I'm talking about just what I highlight. In current times, modern times, we are really, in a sense, the first generation to date. Mm-hmm. Right? It was what is it? Not catering. What's the word? Courtship.
Courting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, courtship prior. But we're the first generation of being in the dating thing, the dating era. the dating era to include sisters being in the workforce longer than ever.
Yeah.
The opportunity to do so, the ability to do so by choice or not by choice is just there. This is a unique new thing. So you, in a sense, you get used to dialoguing with men in a way a lot longer than what you would have in the past. So the idea of calling out, even that can. I was in a dialogue with this sister on a private Zoom, if you will, and the concept was for her was when men act like, similar to those negative people in her comment, when men act like that, I'm always gonna call them out. Like that was her energy. I have to call them out. I was highlighting. I'm like, well, none of the men in this group think that way or refer to. As a matter of fact, we were having a conversation about women's hair. You know, that goes into a lot of conversation as well. You know, that kind of thing. And so I was like, well, none of the men in this room think that way. So I don't know why the energy is necessary here, since we don't think that way, for one. Two, for those knuckleheads, I don't want you calling them out if you're in relation, because their response is immature. So they're dangerous to you. And so if I have a daughter, I'm going to teach my daughter, I never want you calling out a man. I want you removing yourself. And it's a dialogue that in these days times, it sounds like I'm saying sisters bow down to a man. I'm not saying that at all. It's in protecting you, because our egos can be, in my opinion, a little more sensitive.
Yeah.
And due to the typically physical difference, not always the case. I don't want my daughter at risk because it's okay to talk to a man that way and call him out. And the other part of it, the part that everybody misses, like you said, if she calls out that 5%, as I already mentioned, they're only going to get worse. You gave them light, and there is no level of call out that stops them anyway. So what does it serve to call out the man who says something that you don't like, when you can just remove yourself when they've shown themselves?
So everything that you said, all of it, and what Sincere added as well, it is about the energy that you feed, also the energy that you are showing up in, right? So much of the conversations that women have with men and the experiences that women and men have with each other is really about, what is it that I believe I deserve? So if I'm getting something that's healthy and happy, but I don't believe I deserve that, I won't really be able to receive that fully. So I have to sift through all the good things to find the thing that is connected with the energy that I show up with, that's connected with the idea I have of myself. And if I am positioned in this way, where so many single Black women are married to singleness and married to abandonment and married to neglect and married to these negative experiences that they've had, you're constantly on a hunt to validate that experience, because if not, you have to change your whole identity and your perspective of love and men. And so again, it goes back to the personal accountability, right? But I also want to caveat and just say, because it is social media, the algorithm is designed to engage with negativity.
Right.
And creators understand that. And so sometimes creators will just throw out the negativity to gain more followers, to bring more people in. And so those of us who see ourselves as viewers, right? You and I are creators, but we're also viewers as well. Right. When you're in a position of viewership, you have to be mindful about whose energy you're viewing, whose energy you're opting into, and what that messaging is saying. So it is all about energy, because that's what life is about. And yes, what are you focusing on? What are you feeding? But again, back to my initial question, what is the purpose? What is the reason? How is this serving me?
Yeah, and like I said, in reference, again, I'm being focused on how we speak to one another. That's just something that I think just goes amiss in current times. And it's like, what I just explained can serve sisters, and I'm saying it completely out of love, not out of control.
And I have argued with men here or there, because sometimes that it comes out, but I know that a healthy man is not going to argue with me. So if I'm in an environment where a man is kind of ego hurt and he wants to attack, that's an indication that this is not a safe space for me.
Yes.
I can't beat no man. I already know that. Right. And then what happens is I have to call my husband, my uncles, my daddies, my cousin. Now I'm putting everyone at risk because I wasn't able to just be mature and walk away.
Because culturally, that's generally speaking how sisters were taught in the past. That's one of those don't throw the baby out things that we've thrown out today.
Exactly.
And so that's why I want to deep dive on it with a sister who, so they can see us have the dialogue versus it turn into the argument of what are you saying? And I get it. I'm not knocking that people do it, but we do need to hear that more. And it, again, just to keep you safe from the knuckleheads. And then, like myself, I'll give you a couple times and I'm out.
Right.
So the opportunity to even deal with the man who is mature is out the door if you habitually don't understand what we're talking about.
Absolutely. And as far as the energy is concerned, right, when women are in their healthy feminine energy, they have no desire to match masculinity with a man. So a lot of us are in this hyper masculine state of hurt and survival. And that's where even the desire to want to argue with you comes from. So it's about all of us being energetically aligned and in balance.
Yeah, and I'll say even for us as men, and is to try to understand that unfortunately a lot of times that sister is in that space because of her history. So I try to be patient with it. So I'm not even saying it like it's a right or wrong and that type of thing. And because we understand that we've all had these different traumas, so I'll say to the men also understand that's the space. So I, try to have some patience in it, but I just highlight I can't accept this. But to this point or not. So, we got to figure that out. Let's get that part figured out. And, sometimes people can't get past it. So I have to move on. But
absolutely.
It's not about bigging myself up, but I'm also just saying to the men, as much as I appreciate what Fila just said, we also have to walk into these situations with a lot of patience because we're both coming into things typically with some lack based on our upbringing.
Absolutely. And women also have to understand that every man is not going to be considerate. So sometimes you just need to be quiet and protect yourself. Walk away, sis.
That's what I mean more than anything.
Sometimes she feels guilty for not having sex with a man that she's dating. And by dating, that doesn't mean you're in a relationship. It means you're getting to know this man. And I was like, I don't understand that. Like, where does the guilt come in? Like, what, like, so we're having like the deepest, a beautiful conversation about, do you want, like, did you actually desire to give this man your body? And she was like, well, no, it's that he did a couple dates. Like, I feel like he deserves it. And that to me is the mindset inside of 2024 that is mind blowing to me, where people feel like, oh, because you took me on a couple dates, now I owe you my body. And
a guy feels the same way, the obligation to himself.
Yeah, because he's a man.
To himself, like to his ego.
Yeah.
Right? So the man feels obligated to sleep with this woman at a certain amount of time because his ego is going to start telling him like, bro,
she don't want me.
She don't want me. She don't want you. Any woman that ain't doing this and that amount of, she don't want you. You know how dudes being, with little sunglasses on. Oh yeah. If a chick ain't did this, she don't want you, bro. Type. So all together, men feel obligated and women feel obligated for different reasons. But there is somewhat obligatory aspect to people sleeping with each other. And I think it's crazy.
Cass and Mr. Let Go being the guest on there. A deep dive. That's what we do here on Mental Dialogue. Appreciate, in a sense, where they're going. And I think a lot of what they're saying is a reality that unless it's said out in the open like they've done, people don't think about that they may be moving just like what we just saw there. But any thoughts, Fila?
Yes, we don't know how to date. We don't know how to connect. And so much of our interactions are transactional. So if you give me something, I have to give you something. If you do something for me, I have to do something for you. If you don't give me something or do something for me from the man's perspective, then that means that she doesn't value me. She doesn't want me. As a woman, if I don't give it to him, then he's going to leave. He's going to get it from somewhere else. And, I'm surprised that the woman in the clip said she's mind blown in 2024, because this is not new. This is not a new concept, right? Women, physical appearance, aesthetic, our bodies have always been our currency when we had access to no other currency. So women have used their bodies for transactions in relationships for generations. So we know that. And men have followed their egos in relationships for generations. It's how we've been conditioned. But what it misses is the ability for us to actually get to know each other, to connect. This is why I have a touch timeline that I work with my clients, where there are specific touch points for kissing, for holding hands, for intimacy, which allows enough time for that man to come out of his ego, for his hormone levels, his vasopressin and testosterone to drop, and for her as a woman to get out of that story of unworthiness and I have to give him some cootie cat. Now it takes at least 90 days for y'all to be who you actually are and start having real conversations with the real person. But we have to get out of the mindset of transactional relationships and really get into the space of being connected and coming together. And we can only do that, Montoya, because of forums like this and conversations like this, where we are able to hear what each of us is experiencing and feeling and going through.
Yeah, that's the the unexpected damage of moving into a dating era as a human race.
Right.
Like what we're talking about. So we have no choice but to navigate this new world. And like, again, we can't hold on to all of the traditions. We just need to get rid of the water, keep the baby, right?
Yeah.
Keep the baby. And so understand how this dynamic is going to change, because as much as a grandmother might have said, or a grandfather might have said, you know, I waited till I was married. I'm like, you got married at 16, my grandma. What are you talking about? Like, if you got married at 36, you were not waiting until you 36. And
you'd have been busting it wide open, Grandma.
Yeah, come on now. You know what I'm talking about? So again, we and what I'm wanting to highlight, because I forgot this when I played the very first cut for the show, also in capturing that very, very amazing cut that people have seen. When we're talking about all the trauma that it showed, I also wanted to highlight the need for people like you, relationship coaches. I did a show saying, like, why are there so many damn relationship coaches on Block? And on that show, a couple of the coaches just highlighted in the current times, because this is new times when you think about how long humans have existed on the earth. This is very new what we're doing when it comes to family structure. You know, what 50% of the country marries, 50% don't, and that, which is very low just to 50 years ago, very low compared to 50 years ago, right? Yeah. And so these are all new times. So in the new times, what comes with it is, if you come out of a traumatic experience like we played in the first cut, it becomes a necessity to have a professional, a coach like yourself, because you're not able to learn, quote unquote, through osmosis by seeing the structure at home. So if that's not your reality, then we are figuring out ourselves, and figuring out all on our own leads to additional trauma versus the necessity of a coach. So somebody might say, well, I don't know if I need that type of thing. And of course, like in every industries, there's people that know what they're doing, you know, and people who don't know what they're doing. Now, for anybody in my community, I'm only going to bring the Fila McMillan-Antwines and people to that know what the hell they're doing, to have these dialogues and understanding. So I'm just really highlighting the necessity of people like yourself in the current times. And actually, it's almost a mistake to think you can do it from on your own, or just even with, as I highlight, not to knock this, but even just the spiritual counseling a lot of people will get right before marriage. And then unfortunately, the church want that money. If you get, they want that money too. So they're not going to say y'all don't go together. They're going to say, well, let's work on. And you're right there. And we usually go in to get the spiritual counseling when you've already decided to get married. Whereas in the Mental Dialogue Community Club, we highlight, go get a professional prior to that. Like, while you're thinking that, okay, this is the one, get some dialogue so they can see your blind spots and y'all can figure it out to make sure this is a thing you should move into. Because in the past, it would have been your family vetting, your entire family, making sure, like you know, in the West, we kind of confuse arranged marriages. They still are relatively successful in other parts of the world, because of that vetting process of saying, I know that mother and father saying, I know my child. And as much as we're learning ourselves, we don't always know who we should be with as much as your parents who've seen you from day one saying, this is the person that'll best take care of this personality versus this personality in my family. Now we're doing it without that. And that's what coming into the marketplace, you used to have to rely on the land that your father was going to give you. So you had to kind of listen to the family, even though we didn't have arranged marriages, you still had to listen to the family because you needed a plot of land to raise your family on. So all of that was gone once we moved from agriculture to an industrialized marketplace. So it all plays out into human evolution. We're just figuring it out. So people need you. Go ahead, Queen. I'm sorry for getting on my soapbox, but I just
no. I love it when you just share and go and all that, because we need you in this space and your voice in this space. And I completely agree, right? It was very literal, the impact that the marriage was going to have on the family. Here's the cows, here's the chickens, here's the land. So you saw how your family was benefiting from who you partnered with. It's not as literal now, and we've forgotten that it's still going to impact the children who come from this, the relatives that are seeing us, the people who are in this situation with us together as a whole. So back to how we started about getting out of the selfishness and the individualism that we have gotten into and dating transactionally. And when it comes to coaching and seeking support, anything that you want to do well, you want to learn it from someone who has a proven track record of doing that thing well. This is how we learn. Historically, we used to have spaces where the women went to have conversations with each other, to teach the young women how to be wives, how to be partners. Men would go out into the wild and have experiences that were solely for them, these rites of passage. We don't have that anymore. And so now we have to seek out individuals who still hold some of these keys. And so much of the work I do is about strategy and methodology, but it is also about spirituality. It's about legacy. It's about lineage and restoring those wounds that were created within our community, because we've always been a people who have learned from each other and taught each other and created rules and regulations. We taught everybody around the world how to bathe, how to cook, how to heal themselves, all of that. And we've forgotten it within our own dynamic now. So we absolutely need forums like this, and we need professionals to help us, because that's just how I'm the root worker now, right? The witch doctor now, those kinds of things.
Absolutely.
And it just takes on another form, but we absolutely need it.
And that's the dialogue, just putting it out there so more people like, oh, I never thought of that way. You know what I mean? That's all we're trying to do. We say all I ask is that you think is our motto. All right, here's another area where we used to take, like you said, take the young ladies and teach them this and take them up. So we're going to go in an area where this type of things were taught. So let's play this cut.
You have a chapter on sex.
Yeah.
Of course you do. That's important. And the demons try, this is interesting. Why do they do this? The demons try to sex-proof the marriage so that there would be little or no sex. On page 111, encourage her to dispense sex as if it were a precious or a scarce commodity. I thought that was clever. I like that a lot. Why? Why do the demons care? Like, they want to tempt you to sex before marriage and extramarital, but in the marriage they want to tempt you away from sex. What's going on there?
It's just very important to me to make it clear that inside of a marriage, sex is a thing that the demons would not like. It is a thing that knits the heart of a husband and wife. It has the potential to bathe everything in butter, basically, just make everything better in the marriage. And it's, if the patient is doing what the demons want, she's dispensing it as a way of controlling, a way of withholding blessing until he does what she wants her to do. Until he does what she wants him to do. That kind of like the sort of withholding praise, just withhold good things from him until as your way of improving him. So, I think that's the very kind of demonic logic. And you give me what I want, and maybe I'll give you some of what you want. And what the demons don't want is for the wife and husband both to see sex as a blessing, as a joy, as a recreation, as the thing that that blesses them both for years to come and makes everything about their relationship better. So to see it as it is a duty, and it should be taken on as a duty. You do this because you've been commanded to do it. Sometimes that's why you do it. But it's also a delight, and it needs to be a delight for her as well as for him. So
very critical thought, in my opinion, from the standpoint of what she highlights at the end, if you will, duty and delight. Like that's because again, how does it, when we had that conversation now, it's we threw the whole baby out, or we don't even realize even the way specifically how we teach women about, in a sense, saving themselves. Even the way we do that, we've talked about this on the show, the psychology of hearing that in the manner that we demonize sex. Like that's how a lot of women are taught that. And so I never thought about it until somebody said it on my show. But once she comes into the marriage, all her thinking around sex is around it being demonized. Like even having to overcome that ends up playing a role in them not having a great dynamic in sex because nobody ever highlighted the delight that it should be as well. Right. So in current times, the word duty sounds crazy in current times. But I wanted to contrast this clip with the last one where we heard the obligation, where people are just obligated and having sex before marriage. I would like to highlight, if you are going to get married, that changes. But we're not taught that as much now in current times. The idea of duty, and not just holding to duty only, because as she said, it embalms the whole marriage, if that makes sense. And so I want to actually do a shameless plug and highlight my book, because I talked about this 10 years ago in my book, and I wanted to ask, because my book is set up for dialogue. So I'm going to read this piece and ask you a couple of questions, but it absolutely, I think you'll hear how it relates to the cut. I'm being a little funny with it, but
go ahead.
Right. This Black Socrates Speaks. This is titled Sex, Infidelity, and Marriage. It was written in November 2015. Sex secret for married women from a single man. Mothers, teach your daughters that if they get their husbands off every day, he's less likely to get off elsewhere, and that's real. I know this will make plenty of queens upset, but notice no men will read this and disagree. The key to this secret is the everyday part. So please, no stories about how your previous husband would sleep with you and his mistress on the same day. Yes, that happens. But again, the special sauce to this secret is entering the marriage and never creating the habit of skipping sex. Some men do not want it every day. Lucky you. But when he does, make it happen. Before marriage, my best friend's father told her, baby, if you're not going to give him none, you might as well become a nun. All the men in agreement, please stay I. Ladies, the eyes have it. Plenty of women will argue their husbands are okay with sex once or twice a week, or they should be happy with that. The truth is, he hated going from the daily sex you had before marriage, but had to accept less after you became the mother of his children. Truth be told, when you first started refusing him, you could have just laid there and he would have been okay with that. I know it sounds crazy and you still feel like it shouldn't be this way. However, I'm sharing this not because of how it should or should not be, but because I'm simply stating how it is. This may be appear as if I'm placing the onus of infidelity on our queens. However, I'm not justifying a man or woman stepping out. Although this little gem, like it or not, will help a sister out, and especially your daughters, if you teach them this. I am simply speaking to the reality of testosterone-filled men and the wives who smartly make sure their husbands are not leaving the house, sexually frustrated with high testosterone levels. The husband receiving daily sex doesn't have to compete with his own nature when his sexy coworker makes her daily advances. If he cheats despite having regular sex with you, he just wanted to, and there's nothing you could have done. On the other hand, the good brother who accepts his once a week sex, if that, is sent out daily, testosterone levels through the roof, and expected to resist the sister who goes hard because she sees his faithfulness as a challenge. Queens, believe it or not, that good brother does not want to ruin, for example, 10 years of marriage, the equivalent of 3,650 days for 1 day of new pussy. Advice to men. If you are married and can't openly agree with this post in front of your wife, please note that you can help your queen oblige you daily by being on point with completing your honey to-do list. You can't really expect your queen to work, maintain the house and kids with only a little help from you, plus provide you frequent sex. Lastly, this is a two-way street. So if you're not satisfying your wife, she may become sexually frustrated, increasing her chances of infidelity. The most significant difference is that women are typically not driven by their nature to seek out sex. Her hormones, estrogen, usually do not control her in the same way our hormones, testosterone, control us men. That is why weak men assault women, but that's an entirely different story. Just my 3 cents. All I ask is that you think. So the first question is just simply, which statement did you appreciate the most and why?
So I'm a wife and I'm a realist. So first of all, I appreciate the whole passage. And I think that, it was laid out in a way that was non-threatening and that was funny and that was lighthearted. But I think the thing that stuck out to me the most was the part where you said that women go from sex every day with their men when we're dating, when we're in relationship, to then this very stark contrast once we're married. Because for women, marriage is the prize, right? We're doing all the things to get married. And then once you get married, you stop doing the things that you did. And then when there are breakdowns in the marriage or men do go out or their behavior changes, we're like, well, we don't understand. You changed. What happened? Well, you changed too, sis, right? You changed. So he has to change as well. And what I really hear you saying in that is something that I tell clients all the time is that we can take the word duty and change that to maybe responsibility for it could be a little easier to digest.
Fair enough.
But you have, and it doesn't matter to me, duty, responsibility, whatever.
Right. But no, I'd love to
absolutely. Right?
That's because what's the point, right? If we're going to use the word for you to miss it, that's on us, not on them.
Right. And so you do have a responsibility to nurture the needs of your partner when you are in partnership. And if his need is sex and yours isn't, then that is still his need. Just because it's not a need for you doesn't mean it's not a need for him. And that gets to be nurtured. I think that something really interesting happens with women. And one of the things that I actually coach my clients back into is being seductive, right? Not demonizing your sensuality and not only using it for manipulation, which is what I think the clip was talking about as well.
Right.
Rationing out sex. I'm not going to give it to you as a punishment until you do whatever. So now you take this beautiful, powerful, healing, connective tool that we have and you make it bad. You make it punishment. You make it something that is out of reach, which changes the psychology around sex and how we operate. So now I don't even enjoy sex with you as much. And I may go out to find someone who I can have sex with that is fun and free and liberating as well. But teaching women that it is okay, and not only is it okay, it's healthy for a man to want you in partnership. And there is nothing wrong with that. And that it is healthy for a woman to want to be wanted and to be seductive and to seduce your man every day, whatever that is. I talk about what I call the morning sex man.
Okay.
And I say to women, when you're dating, this is the man that you want to attract, right? Because the morning sex man, he is ready for you immediately. He wants to please you every single day. He wakes up with you on his mind, and his day is made better by opting into you. That is who you want, and that's how you want to show up in your relationship.
And he be marrying that woman because they be giving it to us.
There you go. Exactly.
That's what they be giving it to us, right? That's what they be marrying. And be like, here it is. Let me say this just to play one little more piece of context. So, never been married. One of the things, I already told a big fearful period. I already mentioned that, right? When I talked about that earlier in the show. But one thing, I remember when I was like 25, 26, 27, when I was getting out the Air Force, and the men circling around me explaining, when you get married, you're going to get a lot less sex. Like this was their common conversation. Scared the hell out of me, Fila.
I'm sure.
Because I'm growing up in this era with the obligatory situation we saw where they I ain't even asking for it and she giving it to you. Like I'm in that era. They didn't grow up in that era. So I'm like, I can get sex every day, not being married. But when I'm like, because in my mind, I got ready made in the house. Y'all telling me this is what it's gonna be like?
So what's the point?
That scared me even more.
Mm-hmm.
So just something to think about. One more question from me.
Yes.
Well, you already gave us a lesson. I say, is there a lesson? I got a couple of questions. Is there a lesson that can be taken away? But again, these pieces are just done to drive conversation. So
yes.
So definitely pick up the book, y'all. Let me play at least one more cut and get this queen out back to her family, if you will. This is actually another therapist that I'm following, recently started following. Mm-hmm. Her name's Taylor Chandler. She's amazing. Okay. If you don't follow her, go find her because I know she's gonna be right up your alley.
Yes, I'll definitely do that.
Don't do wife-husband stuff before you become a wife-husband. You asking people to have blind faith in you. Someone's got to know, like, you have the capacity, the desire, the willingness, and it's really who you are. It's not a light switch that you turn on and off. It's who you are. So you really even shouldn't be worried about that. I ain't never even worried about that. I don't got to pick and choose how I show up. It's who I am. So the only thing you're going to get in marriage is more of it. That's so much work. You got to wake up in the morning being like, I ain't married yet, so what am I not about to do? Huh? I can't even help being myself. It's who I am. Why would I got to turn me off to try to manipulate you into marrying me? What the hell? See, ladies especially will have you thinking that's discernment. It's self-sabotage. Men are like, I'm not doing that. You're not about to withhold, try to get me to give you something. That don't even make sense. You want to withhold from me so that I give you something? That only works on people who don't even like themselves. They like you more than they like them. And some of y'all are counting on a sucker who doesn't know that, who doesn't know that he does not have to deal with that. That you withholding shouldn't trigger him to give you more. It should trigger him to go away. That's a man who loves himself. It triggers him to go away. Golly. So y'all got me passionate.
I was just saying, okay, Taylor is passionate, huh?
right on time, right?
Yes,
I got one more cut. I'm sneak in. We got time. Just so you know, there's another one from her too. But go ahead and respond to that one real quick before I play this other one. And it's just, again, in my opinion, I just see her and I love her. But just highlighting what we lost with the breakup of the family.
Yes.
So the dialogue of not doing that is not available. So I'm not blaming women at all for doing it. It's the opposite, as she said, but we're just bringing back the reminder of, although you haven't been taught this is the actual proper way, because in the past you would have seen it through example. So that's just my thoughts on why so many even get taught or learn. Well, no, you don't do that for whatever, versus becoming, in a sense, a wife. Not for every man or every man you date, but just that concept of, like she said, this is just who I am. And that, in my opinion, gives you a much better opportunity. Your thoughts, Queen?
So I think part of the problem currently is that we are all moving from the negative instead of the affirmative. So even the lessons that we're taught are from the negative. Listen, don't do this, never do that, don't do this. But no one's saying what you should do and how you should move.
Exactly.
Right? So as far as withholding is concerned, I'm not a proponent of withholding anything, but I am a proponent of giving intentional access. Because the problem with women is that they are either completely closed or they are completely open. So there's no balance. Right. So when the conversation comes up around, not doing wife things unless you're a wife, I don't really know what that means to women either. Right. I don't know what that means, because if we're in partnership and we're building something together, there's a mutual submission that has to happen.
Absolutely.
Right? You do have to feel that I'll nurture you and that I will nourish you and be a safe space for you. And I also have to feel that I can trust you and rely on you, and you'll provide and you'll protect.
And I have to be vulnerable to show you that. I have to be.
Exactly. We have to be vulnerable. We have to be open. We have to take the risk to be hurt and disappointed in order to really get the things that we want and that we seek. So it's simply about being strategic in your movements from the very beginning so that you're moving towards what you want. But once a person is in your life, it's less about the strategy and it's more about the connection with that individual, trusting yourself to move forward. And so many women don't know how to trust themselves because they've made such poor choices, and then they project that onto men and say, well, I'm not going to give you this because I can't trust that you'll treat me well, when it's really, I can't trust that I'll treat me well, so I'm withholding. But instead of withholding, just being intentional about the level of access that you give folks. You don't let a stranger come into your house. That's stupid. That's unsafe, right? And so the man that you've just met, no, you don't give everything to him. But when you are learning and getting to know each other, there is vulnerability that's needed and openness that's needed in that particular space.
And I'm gonna give sisters a secret. Me and the sister I'm dating now, we talked about this, and she's wonderful, by the way. But anyway,
I love that for you.
Yeah, it's dope. It's dope. But we just had a conversation about this very point, so it just came to my head. And I'm gonna play this last cut after this. But I was just highlighting that the era we're in now, and just sisters need to hear this, like men, especially in their 20s and 30s, men will brag about the sister. Man, she made me wait 3 weeks. They brag about, like, their sisters never have heard what I'm saying right now. I'm telling you, amongst men, like, that's a bragging point because that's not the case. So when a sister does, now, guilty of this too, fall head over heels for somebody you really shouldn't even be with, but that alone was a standout because it's so different. Overlooking a bunch of stuff because she respects herself. Like, I just need the sisters to hear. And I've seen men, she made me wait 3 weeks. Like, we really point that out. She made me wait a month. We really point that out. So just for sisters to hear that, if even though their pattern may be something else, just for the
I love that. And I also want to say, from the woman's perspective, and just from growing up in a family of men, men who want you are willing to take the time to earn you and to work for you. Y'all want to achieve, right? Men have an achievement bias. You want to feel like you earned what you got.
Yes, absolutely. Here's the last cut, and this brings balance because you know you focus on the ladies, but I want to bring some balance to close the show out. So this is Taylor again, you know, moving in our direction again. There's no blame here. It's about what we should learn ourselves, but it's necessary because we leaned a little on the ladies today.
No matter how well you lead, the women ain't gonna listen. Here comes a victim, enter the chat. They never take long. So I'm gonna say this for the record. The people who are already looking where you're going don't need persuasion to go there. You gotta fight somebody who's going in a different direction. They have a different vision. They don't see the same thing. So when you're trying to lead somebody that's going in a different direction, yeah, you're gonna have some problems. Discernment must be off. How did you get to a point where it's been 3 years? You said 3 years, huh? That you tried to get this woman to get on your program. I don't know how good of a leader you could be to be wasting your time in such a way. I think a good leader is a good time manager. You aren't as good of a leader as you thought.
So I subscribe to traditional roles, not putting that on anyone else. And that can mean different things for different people. And again, I think from just the perspective of history, where those roles existed before even quote unquote money existed. I think we overplay the finances when it comes to the natural roles, if you will. And so a lot of men naturally, in a sense, want to lead, but you have to be taught how to lead. And so what she was describing, in my opinion, is a frustrated male who has not been taught how to lead, and assuming simply by having a penis, he should be the leader. So those men do exist. So let me make that very clear. But for those of us who want to play our role willingly, meaning, and I say this just to make a real point, provision, meaning I am willing to die for you. You should never be in that position for me. So in my willingness to do that for you, there's a level of respect that has to be given for someone who understands that properly and doesn't make the assumption. So I just wanted to kind of highlight, I thought that was a good cut to close us out with and get your thoughts, and we're out of here. But thank you for helping me rock out for episode 3 of the Mental Dialogue Perspective. Any thoughts on that? And give us a closing thought, and we're out of here.
So I think that men should also take a look at how they're being treated in relationships and the women they're attracting and trying to lead as well, right? One of the roles of a good leader is spotting talent. So just because she's a little bit resistant maybe in the beginning doesn't mean that you have to throw the baby and the bathwater out.
Right.
But you should have some boundaries for yourself. It's okay for men to say, you know what, I don't want to deal with this. I'm not putting up with this. And to set standards for themselves and the women that they deal with. From a traditional perspective, men lead in the literal sense, and it's okay for that to be the situation when you're in a relationship with a man who has your safety and your security in mind. And I tell women all the time, you know, all this softness that y'all want, if you let him take the lead, you have a lot more time to relax and have some ease.
There it is. I love that. It's a perfect way to close out episode 3. Thank you, Queen. Let them know how they follow you, get your services. Because again, I only bring the real ones to you. And this queen right here is, y'all clearly, if you've been watching today, you see it's not the normal chattering back and forth. We're not doing this for attention. We sincerely care about our community. And that's why we do what we do. So thank you, Queen, for doing everything that you do. Let them know how they can follow you.
Absolutely. So I am She Is Fila across all platforms: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. It's She Is Fila, Fila. And if anyone is interested in services, you can reach out on whatever your platform of choice is, and we can go from there. But I am a real lover of Black women and Black men and the Black community. And I don't shrink about that. I don't apologize about that. I love us for real.
And with that, we're gone. And our motto is, all I ask is that you think. And we out of here. Stay in the back real quick for me, Queen.
Absolutely.